So the effects of chemicals on human beings over time is one that really has garnered a lot of research recently, but we're still lacking a lot of answers as far as how much damage some of these chemicals can do to humans over time.
I am very concerned about the chemical engineering of our foods, but as I read and listen and study and realize what a company like Monsanto is doing with the engineering of our food supply, it goes against everything that I've learned is good for us, and that is food in its most natural form.
But the processed foods don't have nutrition in them. Their enzymes are dead in the processed foods because they're processed and they're heated. So we are actually, in a way, eating more and starving to death.
We are just so inundated with perfumes and dyes and propylene glycol and all these chemicals that we were told were safe. You know, they're not safe. They are causing lots of issues in health and health matters.
Food. Once upon a time, the word food evoked feelings of fullness, health, and the sharing of the land's bounty and an individual's hard work with family and friends. In the not-so-distant past, we nourished our bodies and our relationships with one another without the intervention of chemicals, dyes, and preservatives. But now our society, the pace, demands on our time, and the needs for frugality increases at an exponential rate. Convenience has become a survival tactic, and fast food and microwavable meals have taken the place of the lunchbox and traditional dinner. The less cost, thought, and effort something requires, the more likely it is to be adopted by the mainstream. Prepackaged foods, bottled sodas and juices, candies and chips. GMOs are predominantly responsible for the convenience and inexpensive foods we consume, and traditional whole foods grown substantially and naturally are thought to be the domain of the uber health conscious and those with disposable income. But is this true? Can't we all make the choice to avoid these altered foods in favor of something our bodies can recognize? Can we, as the ancient Greek Hippocrates suggested, let food become our medicine? Perhaps the insertion of modified organisms into our diet and increased shelf life helps to keep a few extra dollars in our pockets, but what is the real cost? This is the first generation of Americans predicted to have a shorter lifespan than their predecessors.
75% of our wheat is GMO. 95% of our soy is GMO. And when the soy is eaten by the cow, and then I eat the cow, I'm taking in the GMO. The studies on GMO have only been done for up to 3 months, and the effects of GMO foods is not realized until the 4th month when they do studies on rats. And what the GMO food does is it ages the body faster. It ages the digestive organs, the liver. You see them, they look like prunes. It also creates infertility in the animals.
I just say it's a lack of knowledge. We are so fast-paced. We've run very busy lives. A lot of young moms, and we just don't look carefully enough. And you just don't think that they're putting some of the things that they would be putting in there. You know, most people think that a tomato is just tomato. Now they're actually splicing human genes with tomatoes. There's just so many things people have no idea, and you've got to kind of know where to hunt for it, because most people are just going to listen to the TV or newspaper. And I mean, I have people that come in and say, I just do 100% whole wheat. Well, 100% whole wheat is not a good thing because the wheat is now genetically modified.
And we live on a lot of sugars and carbohydrates. That's what breads, pastas, things like that, which is a neurotoxin for most of us. We were not designed to digest grains. So what you wind up with is inflammation. Inflammation in the vascular system, inflammation in the gut, inflammation in the brain, and now we have brain fog, now we have headaches, now we have aberrant behavior from people.
Another example of this type of technology, though, is what has been done with corn, where they've treated corn with DNA that causes the corn to produce a pesticide internally to the kernel. Again, this is a Monsanto product, and they have argued that there's no evidence whatsoever that this causes damage to humans. I personally would prefer not to feed on corn produced by this process. Why take the risk?
As we started the journey, I had already started to notice the popularity of organic produce, for example. I'd heard of grass-fed beef and chicken and wild-caught fish, for example. I noticed that as I stopped buying the processed foods, such as the boxes and the cans and the quick mixes and those types of things, then our food budget allowed me to spend a little bit more on organic produce, for example, a little bit more on grass-fed beef. Another thing I noticed is that we didn't eat as much food in general because we had real food, whole food, so you'd be satisfied with less at a meal.
So my husband and I have tried to simplify. Basically, we try to do whole food nutrition and buy local wherever possible. Want things that are fed a non-GMO diet, and this is just the way we have been educating ourselves.
I do eat organic as much as I can eat organic, and the reason I eat organic is because that is going to be the cleaner and probably have more nutrients than other foods. I try to grow as much of my products as I can, or food products, but I know what I've put on it and I know what's in it. And so yes, I try to eat as much as I can organic.
The question of whether or not a person should eat organic food in many ways is a personal choice. I highly recommend people educate themselves though. The word organic has a lot of different meanings, and while there are federal bodies regulating it, it's been broadened to the point where the difference between certain foods that have been labeled organic versus not is about $2 in price and not much else. Others, certainly, it is worth looking into the organic choices that are out there. But definitely, everybody needs to educate themselves on this subject so that we're aware of what we're eating.
That's where the research comes in tremendously. Going to the grocery store, you have foods that will say all natural. All natural can mean anything to MSG, to grains that have been thrown in there, to high fructose corn syrup. They don't have to use words like MSG anymore. They can just put in there natural. Most people think organic is organic, but there's like 7 steps to organic. So you'll have some labels that say organic, but then you have other labels that will say USDA. Organic. And so a lot of the organic labels will mean only one item in that product is organic. The rest are not. And people think the word natural means good. No, you have to read in between the lines and know what these long, huge words are. If you don't, then you go back and you look it up. That's a kind of a buzzword, natural, and right now I'm seeing local grown as a buzzword because local grown doesn't necessarily mean local grown. You've got to go back and rethink and look at where your products are actually coming from. So always do your research and go back and read labels.
As to build an immune system, the body uses food to build my bones, and the body, that's what the perfect key is for the body, is food. And if my food is depleted, then I'm going to be depleted. And the soils are depleted from all the chemicals, and the plants grow and they are depleted as well in minerals. And then also they take up the toxins that are put into the herbicides and pesticides that are put into the soil. So that's one of the big reasons to be eating organic. And if you're not eating organic and you're eating these kinds of foods, you're not getting what the body needs to create a healthy immune system. So you're depleted and you are kind of like a plant that hasn't had water even though you're getting sunshine maybe, but you're like a plant that doesn't have what it needs to protect itself.
As an operator of a water treatment plant, I'm given, you know, a toolbox of tools to treat the water with what I have. And currently, we don't have the technology to see if there's pharmaceuticals in the water. At this point in time, it's difficult to track. So as far as you just gotta kind of rely on the treatment process that we're doing, the conventional process, that it will remove the contaminants. First, we have to see if there's any contamination there. And how you do that on a running scale, I'm not really sure. Again, they're just starting to discover these different things, the estrogen mimickers, the pharmaceuticals and stuff. So if you could quantify it, I would think, yes, we could remove it, but again, it's just difficult to do with the technology we have today.
You know, it's like we are organic systems as a human being, just like the earth and just like the trees and the birds, and that's what we thrive on. And playing around with our DNA through genetically modified foods, or putting into us the toxins that are in the air, that are in the water, that are in the food. It's amazing to me how well the human body continues to survive. And cancer is an expression of the toxicities in our environment that is inside of us. You can't not live in this environment that we have here. Just like a fish lives in a fish pond, it's taking in what's in the water. And so we cannot live in this environment without having it affect us in our own bodies. And that's what we see. I believe that's one of the reasons we're seeing such a high increase of cancer, is how toxic the environment is becoming.
Eat things in their most natural form as possible. You know, how they're grown without added preservatives and dyes, and anything that's artificial, really. If we're putting something artificial in our bodies, whether it's, you know, chemicals, whether it's MSG, you know, the artificial sweeteners, when we put those in, our body's working to figure out, what is this substance in there? What is this foreign thing? This is not something that I need or want. You know, it's going to work really hard to figure that out. So it's not going to have the energy to do what it's designed to do. And so that's going to put stress on us. And that can, of course, break down our immune system. It can make us feel bad. It can make us tired.
My basic concern is, what is it doing to us on a cellular level, and basically changing the way we are able to combat illnesses. And our immune systems, I believe, are being very compromised by this. It's just too much. We cannot keep going on. We cannot sustain this lifestyle of toxic chemicals, because all these diseases that are coming about are growing. The numbers are growing, and it is not just in our genetics. This is something that is being put in our foods and our everyday products. And I truly believe that the noticeable change happened for me when I quit having migraines every day. And basically, because I was a person that believed, you know, you have to keep your house clean and everything, I use those products every day. Well, that one small thing just basically diminished my headaches in such a tremendous way. I mean, I was going to the emergency room for these. I have not had a migraine like that since I got rid of the toxic chemicals. And if you cannot afford organic, and you cannot afford, at least start using, you know, chemical-free cleaning products, because you are doing yourself a grave disservice, because whatever you inhale, you are consuming.
We've ended up with estrogen levels, or environmental estrogens at least, in our water supply in various different ways. End up increasing cancer rates. There have been links between it and things like breast cancer in particular, a lot of female reproductive cancers. Certainly could be causing issues in reproduction in wildlife and in humans. There have been a number of studies on panthers and alligators as species living in water, where we'll find males that in their testes have ovarian tissue. These individuals aren't reproductively capable. When Monsanto created Roundup, they created an herbicide that would kill essentially all plants. And they also created a soybean that was resistant to Roundup. So you could apply Roundup to a field, kill off every plant but the soybeans that the farmer would want to keep, and it worked beautifully for that purpose. Unfortunately, as time has gone on, plants are adapting to that. Natural selection is happening, and plants, just like we get superbugs in hospitals that are resistant to antibiotics, we're now getting plants that are resistant to Roundup, and so they've created Roundup version 2. And eventually, though, they'll need to create up Roundup version 3 or 4 or etc. until arguably, eventually, we won't be able to come up with a technological answer to the problem the same way Roundup has. A lot better at catching it and figuring out at exactly what is causing the problem. And so people, when they die of cancer, we know what it was. So that is one issue. On the other hand, we also have this drastic increase in the amount of preservatives in our food, the amount of mercury in our environment, and the amount of pesticides that we use on a regular basis, and other chemicals that we're exposed to too. But all combined, or perhaps a few that haven't been studied well enough at this point yet, might be an issue that we should look closer at.
There's several remedies that are not part of our traditional medicine, traditional Western medicine. I know for a long time, until recent years, I considered alternative medicine, such as, ancient Chinese remedies or Native American remedies. Well, that's what they used before science advanced to where it is now. And so thankfully we don't have to depend on those things anymore. That was my mindset. But I have learned and experienced over and over and over in myself, in my family, people that I know, people that I don't know, but that I know of, there is great value in things like using things like colloidal silver, pure essential oils, using herbs and basic foods for actually healing and taking care of things like, you get your garlic, your cayenne pepper, local honey, the essential oils that are so healing and balancing for the body, that are derived from actual plant material, which was put on this earth just like we're put on this earth, and so they're going to work with our bodies. So those types of things, I'm open to those. I became open to them, and that's what I would really, really encourage anyone to not close your mind off and not allow yourself to consider the possibility that the key to your health is right around you, is in our world, that it's already created, already made. It doesn't have to be manufactured in a lab, and so to look into that and not poo-poo some was considered just ancient hooey. And so yeah, that's what I would recommend. Open your mind to considering something could really help you that you might not have thought about before.
I think the biggest thing that I try to do, and I want people to know, is it's your body. It's the one body that you've got. We need to really look after it. And so many people go by what somebody else is telling them. When someone comes in here, I always will give them some information of what I quote I would do, but I always tell them, don't believe a thing I say. Go out there and do your own research. Don't let anybody tell you what to do with your health. You need to go and research on your own, because this is our only body. And someone put it not too long ago, they always say we have a lifespan. But you can have a long lifespan, and we are living longer, but our health span isn't nearly as long. We're getting sicker and sicker, and I just want to see people go out there and try to look into things, gain more knowledge, and look out for your children or your grandchildren. So many people come in so defeated because I've got this illness or I've got that one, and you know, I'm told that I'll be on this medication the rest of my life. Look into it. Don't just go by what one person tells you. You know, we have a lot of information out there available to our source, so we just really need to look into it.
What would I say to young people? I think the thing that makes me most moved in my life right now is when I look out into the world. Not only is the world toxic in terms of chemicals that we see, but I look at some of the music that we have now, and I look at what's on television, and I look at how violent of a culture we are. I don't know about other cultures, but I don't know that I appreciated until I matured and until I was sick, how sacred life really is and what a special thing it is. And it's not just as a human life, but it's a life of a fish or a life of the trees or the cattle, and how we look at life as we take it so for granted. And so when I look out and I see young people smoking or alcohol or some of these heavier drugs that people are doing, and they're giving away something that is, I don't know what it is, but it's very special, and it makes me sad to see that people don't value life, and I believe that valuing life means how we treat each other as well.